So tomorrow we will be doing a team test. I will post it in Google Classroom later today. You can print it and write on there if you prefer, or you can just work the problems out in your notebook. For tomorrow, I'll go over it a little bit better then, but we will go into breakout rooms and you'll be expected to submit your team test tomorrow at the end of class. So I know most of our assignments are due at the end of the week, but that team test will be due tomorrow. Just kind of that heads up. And then on Friday, you have your individual test. Before we get started, do we have any homework questions or anything you guys need me to go over? Maybe something you were looking over from last time just doesn't make sense. If not, we can do that at the end as well. Maybe you're not sure. So let me get the screen started. Okay, so we're gonna start on 2-131 then. Our equation is y equals x squared minus 2x minus 15. And they want us to find the vertex by the method we used earlier in the chapter. First, finding the x-intercepts, and then we can find the vertex so that we can write it in graphing form. So to find the x-intercepts, we set y equal to 0. So we have 0 equals x squared minus 2x minus 15. We can factor, or we can use completing the square or quadratic formula. I'm going to go ahead and factor this one. So my sides here will be negative 5x and 3x. Remember, we're looking for two numbers that multiplied in negative 15, and that when we add them, the sum is negative 2. So we have 0 equals x plus 3 times x minus 5, because that's the outside of our box. And then we need to use the 0 product property. If we multiply two things together and get 0, one of them has to be 0. So we have x plus 3 equals 0, and x minus 5 equals 0. If I subtract 3 on both sides here, I get x equals negative 3. And then if I add 5 on both sides here, I get x equals 5. So those are my two x-intercepts if we think about kind of the graph. And then remember the line of symmetry. Is the average or the middle of the x-intercepts. So to get our line of symmetry, it's always x equals. We add these and divide by 2. We average them to find the middle. And you might be able to look at these and know that in the middle of negative 3 and 5 is 1. But that's going to be where your line of symmetry is. So then to find the vertex, we take that x value and plug it in. So if x equals 1, we have y equals 1 squared minus 2 times 1 minus 15. So we take x equals 1, that's what we got here, and we plug it into our original equation to solve for y. One squared is 1, minus 2 minus 15, we get negative 16. So our vertex is 1, negative 16, which means graphing form here. Remember, graphing form is the one with A, H, and K. A we can already see is 1, and then here's H and K. So x minus 1 squared minus 16. So for part B, we're going to do the same kind of idea, but it's not going to come out as pretty. Our numbers aren't going to be as nice. So the equation is y equals x squared plus 8x plus 10. So again, if we find our x-intercepts, we have x squared, 0 equals x squared plus 8x plus 10. I'm going to do the quadratic formula on this one because I know that I know that this isn't factorable. So the quadratic formula, we get negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So that's negative 8 plus or minus 8 squared is 64. 4 times 1 times 10, we get minus 40 all over 2. So negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 24 all over 2. So I'm going to do the square root of 24 just kind of off to the side here. As a reminder on these simplifying square roots. So there's a couple of different ways to do this, but we know that 24 is the product of 4 and 6. It's also the product of 2 and 12, but 2 and 12 don't help us because we don't know the square root of 2 or of 12. So if we do the square root of 4 times 6, we know that the square root of 4 is 2. So this simplifies to 2 root 6 because we take out this 4. The square root of 4 is 2 and the 6 stays inside. So negative 8 plus or minus 2 root 6 over 2. And now we can just divide everything by 2 because they're both even. And you ignore the root 6 when you're doing your division. Just like if this said 2x and we divided by 2, it would become x. So negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. Plus or minus 2 root 6 divided by 2 is just root 6. So those are our x-intercepts, -4 plus root 6 and -4 minus root 6. So we can follow the same process to get the line of symmetry. Where we average them, so we add them. So we have -4 plus root 6 plus -4 minus root 6. Again, that's one x-intercept with the plus, and then one has the minus root 6. Well, this plus root 6 and minus root 6, those are going to end up canceling out right here. They become a 0 pair essentially. So this is -8 over 2, which is -4. So that's why I wanted to do another one of these, just so we can see that it doesn't always work out as nicely. And we can still find the vertex by plugging in -4. This part works out nicely for us now. So we have x equals -4 because that was our line of symmetry. That was in the middle of the two x-intercepts. So y equals -4 squared plus 8 times -4 plus 10. -4 squared, remember our negatives. -4 times -4 becomes positive 16 minus 32 plus 10. We end up with -6. So our vertex here is -4, -6. The x came from the line of symmetry, and then the y value came from plugging it in. So again, we just did standard form. That's what you do before the quadratic formula, ax squared plus bx plus c, to graphing form with the a, h, and k. And we're going to do this by completing the square. So we're not going to find the average. We're not going to find the x-intercepts and then average them. That method will still work. And if you prefer that method, you can do that method. So our equation here, and this should be a review for math 2, but again, we kind of had a lot of time off at the end, or it wasn't as structured, so we may not remember all of this. So what you want to do here, and I may do it a little bit different than your math 2 teacher did it, and if you do it differently, that's fine as long as you show your work. You want to get your x's alone. So what I want to do here is I'm going to subtract 10 on both sides. I'm always going to move my constant over. So I have y minus 10 equals x squared plus 8x. So I'll kind of write what I'm doing. Move constant to the other side. Then what we're going to do from here is we're actually going to complete the square by splitting our x terms in half. So I'll just say we split the x terms in half to start our square. So x squared goes in the upper left, and then half of 8x is going to be 4x in both of these. Then we find the outside of the box and the missing piece. Or missing, yeah. So if this is x squared and 4x, this is x, 4, and 4. Because it's a square, this has to be the same on both sides. And so our missing piece here would be 16. 4 times 4 would be 16. And then we want to add our missing piece. To both sides of the equation. So again, our missing piece was positive 16. 4 times 4 was 16. So we're going to go back here and we're going to add it to both the left and the right. So we get y plus 6 equals x squared plus 8x plus 16. And remember, the reason we picked 16 was so that we can make this side a square. So we want to rewrite as a square. Basically, we want to rewrite this as the outside of the box. Which is x plus 4 squared. If I multiply x plus 4 times x plus 4, I get this. And then last, we move the constant to get y alone. We get y equals x plus 4 squared minus 6.
Sorry, I'm just wondering where you got the 6 from. Wasn't it 10?
It was a minus 10, and then we added 16.
Okay.
So on problem 134, we're going to do something similar, but we're going to complete the square for a circle. So remember, graphing form for a circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So that's going to be our goal on this problem, is to get it to look like this. So the original equation we have here is x squared plus y squared plus 4x minus 8y plus 11 equals 0. So this is very similar to completing the square for a parabola. The first thing we're going to want to do is move that 11 to the other side. Sometimes it'll already start on the other side, but basically you want to get your x's and y's on one side together. So I'm going to subtract 11, and I'm going to rearrange this left side. So I'm going to put my x's together and my y's together. So I have x squared plus 4x plus y squared minus 8y equals negative 11. So I subtracted 11 on both sides, and then I just kind of switched these terms around.
Ms. Rice,
Yes.
for the graphing form, that's x minus h, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So now what we need to do is we need to complete the square twice, once for our x's and once for our y's. I don't have enough room over there. I'm going to do it over here. So for my x's, I have x squared plus 4x. So I cut the 4x in half. That's 2x and 2x. And for my y's, I have negative 8y, and I cut that in half. Make sure you include the negative, negative 4y and negative 4y. And then again, it's the same process as before. We find the outside of our boxes, x, x, 2, and 2. So that tells us that for my x's, I'm missing 4. So I want to add 4 to both sides of my equation. And then for my y's, I get the outside of the box, y, negative 4, negative 4. I'm missing 16. That's the missing piece to make it whole. So I'm going to add 16 on both sides of my equation. The way I line it up, the missing part with the x's, I put under the x's, and then the missing part with the y's, I put under the y's. And so you have kind of two options. Some of you will write it this way. So that's just kind of showing you what it looks like written out, where x's and y's kind of are separated. Some of you are going to skip this step. I will often skip this step when I'm writing it out. I know I added 4 to make this a square. So this is x plus 2 squared plus the outside of this one, y minus 4 squared. That should not be 20, sorry. That should be a 9. So again, some of you will just come straight to here. And that's fine. The reason we added 4 was so that we can write this as a square. The reason we added 16 was to write the y's as a square. So now kind of looking back for our circle, we know that the center is going to be at negative 2 because it's x minus h. Since this is a plus, it's a negative. And then y minus k, so 4, negative 2, 4. And our radius, remember it should be equal to r squared. So since this is equal to a whole number, we square root it and we get 3 because that's the square root of 9. it does ask us to sketch our circle here. I probably need that a little bit taller. So we know our center is there at -2, 4. And then, so to graph your circle, what I personally think is easiest is to, from that point, just go up 3, down 3, left 3, and right 3. So there's our center, -2, 4. Up 3, down 3, right 3, and left 3. So when A is not 1, we have to do it a little bit differently. The steps are almost the same. There's just kind of one extra step we need, 1 or 2 extra steps we need to do in there. So on 135b, the equation is f of x equals 3x squared plus 12x plus 11. So it's going to start off the exact same, and we're going to move the constant, the c value, to the other side. So we have f of x minus 11 equals 3x squared plus 12x. So this is where it's a little bit different. Now that we have an a value not 1, we have to factor out the a value. So this left side stays the same, f of x minus 11 equals, we factor out whatever a is. So it's kind of like the distributive property backwards. So we divide by 3. 3x squared divided by 3, we get x squared. 12x divided by 3 is going to be plus 4x. Again, that distributive property backwards. 3 times x squared is 3x squared. 3 times 4x is 12x. So that's kind of that extra step there, is to factor out the a value. Now, if you're looking at the steps from last one, we still want to complete this square here. But because this 3 is in front, we have to do it 3 times. So again, the 3 in front means we have 3 of these squares, and all 3 of them are the exact same. So the 3 in front means we do this 3 times, and this is what we're completing the square for, the x squared plus 4x. So remember, you cut the 4x in half to get 2x. The exact same square 3 times. And if you notice, if we count all these x's, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, that's the 12x that we started with up here. So we get the outside of our boxes, they're all the same. And our missing pieces, 2 times 2 is 4. Do we have questions to hear? Because this next step kind of confuses people. So again, we did 3 boxes that were the exact same with the x squared plus 4x, and we found the missing piece to be 4. So I'm going to put a plus 4 in my parentheses. But on this left side, I'm not going to put plus 4, I'm going to put plus 12. Because I'm adding 4, 4, and 4. I added 4 3 times. Or 3 times 4 here if I distribute. So again, this 12 is we add 4 3 times. If you don't understand where that 12 comes from. So f of x, we had negative 11 plus 12. We now have plus 1 equals 3. And then we added the 4 so that we can write this as a square. 3 times x plus 2 squared. Just write it as the outside of your box. And the last thing is going to be to get f of x alone. We have f of x equals 3 times x plus 2 squared minus 1. So our vertex of this parabola is -2, -1, h and k. And our stretch factor, our a, is equal to 3. Remember, a is our stretch factor, which tells us the direction it opens and if it's compressed or narrow, skinny or wide. Okay. I think that's all we're going to do today. There's more on 135, but you have a couple more of those in your homework. So I'm not too worried about it. You can practice them there. If you do think you need to see me do another one, I am happy to kind of stay after and go over 1 or 2 more with you if that's needed. But remember, team test tomorrow, your personal and that'll be during class. Your individual test is on Friday, and I will probably give you more directions tomorrow, is the plan. But if that all makes sense to you, we are ending. So technically class still has 40 minutes left. You could probably go get your homework done if you wanted to now, because this is the stuff that will be on your test Friday. So if you have questions, you're going to want to make sure you ask them before then. But you guys are free to go unless you have other questions and want to stick around.